My name is Lyneir Richardson. I'm the Executive Director at the Rutgers Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. I also serve as an Assistant Professor of Professional Practice at Rutgers Business School. I am pleased to be joined today for a conversation with Karine Blanc, a Rutgers Newark graduate, and we are here both to acknowledge and to be a part of the celebration, the 75th anniversary celebration of Rutgers Newark. Karine, I want to welcome you to the conversation. Thank you for making time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. This is a conversation about sort of impact and the role of Rutgers Newark as an anchor institution, our role as professionals of color, our connection to community, our connection to Newark and places and communities like Newark, New Jersey. And the way I want to start out is just to do a sort of a high level, my off the top summary of 2021 and 2020, right? So we came into 2021. I thought of 2020 as a year of pandemic, of protests, and a political pandemonium, right? PPP. Right? And then as a result of that, I think we started 2021 with great hope that there would be a cure for the vaccination, that there would be a vaccination for COVID, that there would be, there were 50, maybe $60 billion of commitments made by large corporations to racial justice initiatives. And I had great hope for entrepreneurship support and economic development initiative, that capital would make it there. And this work of an anchor institution, both doing research as well as practitioners who are out there trying to move the needle, all became much more important and much more visible, right? I became more comfortable saying that our work of supporting Black entrepreneurs, of getting economic development to happen in Black communities, of getting capital to Black fund managers and Black developers without apology, right? Without saying minority and people of color, and there've been BIPOC initiatives. It's like, hey, there's been systemic inequality, and this is a moment in time where we can address that. What's your reaction to that sort of macro summary? You agree? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with?
Sure. I think it's great. I think it's great that there's been a light shed on this. I think the dollars are real. I hear that a lot. People are putting out these big numbers. Are the dollars real? Some of the bigger corporations, they've committed this money over 30 years, so there's a lot of nuances in how the capital has been committed, but I think it's great. I think it shows that this is real. I think the biggest thing that, we preach a lot in my space is, we can do good and well at the same time, and I think people are seeing that. I think that's hitting and people are getting it, that we don't have to sacrifice making money at somebody else's expense. We can do good for the community, our communities, and still get a great return. We can really move mountains with these dollars. So I think the initiative is great. I love the different kinds of initiatives that they are. It's not just affordable housing. That's another thing I hear often, is this rhetoric of the only way something is impactful is if it's affordable housing. But we see a lot of these corporations are saying we want to give to Black developers, we want to give to Black-owned businesses, and I think that creates a space and some flexibility to really deploy that capital.
I agree. Spend a quick minute on just your career trajectory since graduating from Rutgers.
Sure. So, a lot of people don't know this, but when I went to college, I actually went to Boston College my freshman year of college. And, it was very, very vanilla campus, and which was fine because those are the kind of schools I grew up in. I was used to that. And I went to school in September 2008. which everybody knows is the big financial crisis. It was the worst time to go to college. I don't know if it was the worst time to be going to college or to be graduating from college, but it was such, it was just such a crazy time in this world. And I ended up transferring to Rutgers my second year because of financial reasons. And I specifically went to Rutgers, Newark. I wanted to be close to the city. And it was so different. It was so diverse in so many different ways. You had people who were on campus commuting. You had people who had jobs, which sounds like a little silly, but in some colleges, it's like people aren't, you had people who were working full-time, part-time, people who had families, people in all age groups. Even that kind of diversity speaks so much about Rutgers. Rutgers is truly a place for everybody. International students, it just really being there, I gained so much from it, so much more than what was in the classroom. And so I graduated with a bachelor's degree in economics, and I started my career in finance, worked in different roles. I worked as a fixed income analyst. I ultimately went to work for a real estate private equity firm in New Jersey, where I was doing business development there. I worked several years as a commercial real estate broker in the city of Newark. And now I'm the director of investments at the Collective Investment Group in Philadelphia. And we are investment managers. We are raising $100 million to deploy capital to Black commercial real estate developers in the city of Philadelphia. And it's such a great mission. I truly feel like my career has led me up until this point. When I was working as a broker in Newark, I really saw how Black developers and even Black investors in general, there really was this lack of access to capital. Even now, after all these years, I really could see the systemic problems that these communities were facing. I saw, your traditional developers and go in and try to build Newark. And Newark's a very progressive city. They're very empowering of Black developers and bringing developers up. They have this great program where you can buy land from the city, and even seeing Black developers go through that process and see where their struggles were in the process. Some developers, they didn't have anybody to navigate them through that. They didn't know where to get the loan from, and I just saw that. So when this opportunity came to work with the collective, it was really a match made in heaven. And now we're tasked with evaluating projects for that Black developers in Philadelphia are building, and trying to align capital for them.
And I love that, right? That's my for 20 years a career in real estate, and I should have also mentioned, my personal revelation sort of last year. At the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development, we've helped about 600 entrepreneurs. 70% are entrepreneurs of color, over 60% are women. And the initial focus was around, it still is around, capacity building programs, educational initiatives. But what hit me last year were really two things. One is I started to feel like all of the education programs we were doing without some capital at the end was like workforce development training without a job. Right? And so we changed our focus, or we added to our list of services attention to how do we get patient, flexible, early stage capital to entrepreneurs. We formed an angel investment fund. We got some capital from a foundation and from a bank to do early stage, even grant making or forgivable loans. That type. We started intentionally connecting entrepreneurs to capital. So you have to see that opportunity as well. You see entrepreneurs with ideas, and with great real estate projects, but they need capital, and they need not only last in capital, but for capital, gap filling capital. They need first mover capital. agree with that?
Right, right, absolutely. And one thing, we say a lot to our potential capital sources that we talk to, in our case specifically, our developers, they're not new developers. That's a question we get a lot is, are these people who have never built anything? Are these house flippers? Are these, we get that a lot. And there's a space for that, that's not to knock that.
Yeah.
But our developers, they're all seasoned developers. They're all ground up construction, commercial real estate developers who just have lack of access to capital, and that prevents them from really scaling. Either they're developers who are only able to do one project at a time because they're putting their own dollars into their project. It's exhausting. I mean, like even trying to explain that is exhausting, especially when you compare it to how traditional developers move. It's like, they got an uncle with this much money who invests in their project, or they're able to pool money a lot more freely, quite frankly. And we're trying to create that for our developers to be able to scale more, to be able to take on multiple projects at a time, to be able to grow their teams. We really want to get them to do more volume.
Yeah, I see this, I call it entrepreneurial ingenuity, that people are doing amazing things with almost no capital, right? And the work in, historically discriminated against communities in areas that have intentionally been not invested in over time, right? Where the system, has worked against, just real estate values and the people. I still see people doing the hard work of assembling property, having vision about how to pull an idea together, making the request for public assistance, putting community partnerships together and advancing projects. But the work that you're doing at Collective, with your whole crew there to try to get capital, is needed now, and it's needed bad. How's it going?
It's going well, and I'm so great. I'm so grateful that we've gotten to the point that we're getting. And I love like what you just said about kind of in the real estate world is putting together the capital stack, right? It's like, how do we build a capital stack that works? And what we've seen with our developers is that it's like they put together these complicated capital stacks, and if it gets the deal done, great, it's fine, but the project moves so much slower, with certain forms of capital. And we really want to be in a position to provide equity to these projects to get them moving a lot quicker. And that's a huge obstacle that we've had, but that's the solution we're trying to bring to the table.
No, I love it. Second revelation from last year that was fun for me was we started working on initiatives we call it inclusive commercial property ownership. That there was, everyone started talking about we want to close the racial wealth gap. We want to, create initiatives to close the racial wealth gap and create, generational wealth. And it hit me like a ton of rocks one day that wealth is created by owning assets that generate revenue, maybe have tax advantages, hopefully appreciate over time. So coming up with ways that help more people of color, more Black people, own commercial property, real estate, licenses, intellectual property, businesses, any of that, helping people own assets is where more and more attention needs to be. And that can even create a whole strategy around inclusive investment opportunities. Just I like the crowdfunding rules, that I've used that in a project to help people with $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 invest in a project and have a connection to a place and, own it. What's your view about inclusion in investment and community ownership models that people are talking about a lot right now?
Yeah, I love that, and, at the Collective, we are very focused on capitalizing the developers. But what I like about that is that our developers have fundraised via crowdfunding platforms. So, even if us capitalizing our developers then enables them to offer this platform to the community. That is amazing, and that's the kind of impact we want to be able to show, that, hey, this is, if the developer can turn around and say, hey, we could get this project done but without you, but we want to include the community in it. We really want you to be a part of this. We want you to own a piece of this because this property sits in your own community. If we could be a part of that story, I mean, that's great. That's what we're all here for. That's what this is all about.
Yes. And so that any of this fuel for your, particularly the work at the collective, any of these ideas sort of generate while you were at Rutgers? Do you remember sort of thinking about walking down Halsey Street? Any of that? You're like, what? How do we connect the dots here? You have any of those memories?
Living in Newark, so I went to Rutgers, Newark undergrad, and then I also got my graduate degree from Rutgers, Newark. And just even being in Newark is such a huge part of why I went into real estate, in a way I can't, I just can't explain. To see a city transform the way I saw Newark transform over, call it 8 to 10 years is incredible. It's such a historical city. Like I remember, I have stories for days, but I remember when, if you walk to Penn Station from Rutgers campus, like you would get like your phone stolen. Like it was like, oh, you're gonna walk to, no, you can't walk to Penn Station. Like you gotta take the shuttle. Like I just remember it being
wow.
like, it's just like 8 to 10 years later, it's like, oh, I'm gonna grab coffee by Penn State. Like, it's like, oh, you want to meet for lunch over there? Like,
Right.
to see a city transform like that, it's incredible, and it's such a huge part of why I went into real estate. Like to really see a city transform, like that became something I just got addicted. Like I want to see cities transform. Like it was just this feeling of like, man, I want to do that.
No, it's funny to me now to work at Rutgers, where we have Chancellor Nancy Cantor, who's been this international proponent of publicly engaged scholarship. And then at the business school, Dean Lay has made social impact one of her 3 strategic priorities, right? And so the role of an anchor institution, the role of Rutgers, and being intentional about opening the doors, making space, equipment, and resources available, seeing economic development as evolutionary and continuing to invest in it, getting students to, be involved with it as well, is something I'm very proud of as a faculty member here and being on the staff. That's got to resonate with you as students, as a former student as well. And do you see any of your other classmates who are also, thinking about economic development type work as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I have a few classmates who are either on the entrepreneurship side, quite a few that are also on the real estate side. But yeah, that being intentional for an anchor institution, it's so important. Even when I was in grad school, I had a class in the Haynes building, and it was just incredible. Even seeing, something that was such a, public-private partnership, and to see Rutgers lease space, in order to, have their students be a part of it, to be in the building that was, resurrected essentially, so it's just so many things like that are just, it's really cool. It's cool to see the progression and the development, and how could you not want to be a part of that?
Very cool. Well, look, I appreciate our conversation today. Anything we can do to be helpful to you in your fundraising effort and your investing effort and identifying good developers or opportunities, please let us know. We hope you will continue to come back to talk to our students, to let other people be inspired by your example. And we hope to see you at, hopefully there'll be some cocktail parties around the 75th anniversary. So we hope to see you at the cocktail parties and the other receptions celebrating our great university.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Lyneir. Thank you. Anytime.
All right. Have a great day.